Some reason. And what I decided to do actually when I left school is that I joined the army for a very specific reason. I wanted to learn how to work within a very large organization for a multitude of reasons. One is that what I did was logistics in the military. So military logistics. How can you take a chaotic situation, which running a business very often is, and then use certain tools to apply order to that chaos? Not control the chaos. You can never control the chaos, but you can at least control how you act and what you do within that framework. And this is really what being in the army teaches you. Second thing I wanted to learn there is that how do you teach people? How do you become a leader and teach people within that type of chaotic situation, which is of course very beneficial as a businessman. So I went into leadership. I was commanding a battalion of about 40 people, more 130 at one point, but usually around 40. So you got the leadership aspect there as well. And the final aspect, once you move from being a conscripted soldier into being a professional officer, which I was also, is that you learn how to teach people. So you
Yeah.
take these 18-year-old kids and you teach them this is the way to do it, from them knowing pretty much nothing about life into becoming fully grown men or women within their fields in just a year or 2 years. So those three aspects is really what got me started. Then I had a long period after that where I wasn't an entrepreneur. I felt that I still wanted to be within that type of environment, but I wasn't really ready to become an entrepreneur yet. So I worked with entrepreneurs instead.
Yeah.
So I always joined companies that was today they would be defined as startup companies. Back then you didn't say that, but they were.
Yeah.
And did that for a multitude of years until I decided, now is my time. I founded a business, and yeah, the rest is history.
Good. It's interesting the military thing, and I think you're the first person I actually interview and I talk to really about this. Do you think that today this military background? I mean, when I was living in London, I knew in England it's very normal that lots of people in financial, for example, come from the military, right?
Mm.
Lots of people that work in financial come from that, right? And it makes sense. It makes sense because of the discipline and all this. Do you think it helps you today to have this background?
It's completely fundamental to everything that I do. It's what you say, it's discipline. It's knowing that once you start your day, you have already set everything up in your mind the day before that, or the week before, or even the month before that. You know
Well,
what you want to do, but at the same time, it teaches you flexibility, knowing that you have this chaos to work with. So even though you have a plan that might deviate, and you know how to work within that plan. Um, if I had not been in the military, I do not believe I would have been as successful as I managed to be in such a short time. So it was certainly the key component. It was the flour in the dough, so to speak.
oh, very interesting. I totally see the uh, how useful it can be, especially in planning. But maybe it can go. It sometimes you that chaos that's good for chaos, but does it help? Can it be can it be the other way around when you have to be agile? Can it be a problem, the rigorosity of that background, or to adapt to change and saying, okay, we want to be agile and we, we need to redo our planning, maybe every month or every week.
Not
Um,
really, not in that respect. No, that is very much what specifically the army, which I was in. I was in a front line armored battalion. So basically, the first troops that get killed, that was us. And then you have a situation where you have to adapt to circumstances. That is part of what you do, right? And what I did for many, many years. What can actually be a negative factor, though, is that when you come from that sort of organization, what we want to have to understand is that the military, no matter which country you're in, is probably the only stable institution that has been there for 1,000 years, right? The government falls, there's new kings, there's new parliaments. The military is always the same. So you have that history of people doing things in a certain way, being disciplined in a certain way, and thinking in a certain way. And once you leave that and you go into a civilian life, all of a sudden you realize this is something that is highly unique. You cannot expect other people to work with you in the same type of way that you would work with a fellow military soldier, officer, whatever it may be, because there is so much training involved. There is so much subtle nuances that you don't even need words to communicate. You know exactly what to do. And this is the way that you can adapt to these chaotic circumstances, right? So you have to find ways to work around that in civilian life, and specifically in entrepreneurship, because people are not going to stand at ease or at attention in the morning and salute you and do whatever you tell them to do, because that's simply not the way it is. You have to adapt that leadership to a civilian setting.
Yeah, makes sense.